present here yet, but I am going to make a statement. If any comments need to be made by the public, there is a public forum following the meeting. If any comments or questions are made by the committee members, we would appreciate you addressing and answering the questions that are asked of you, if anything at all, at the time they are asked. Now, everybody signed in? Yes? Yes. Thank you. We have minutes approval?
Move.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any discussions, items before we start? Okay, we go case management.
Okay, the first case is page 47 in your book, and it's Amy Hertzig. The officer involved is Jose Sepulveda and Kimberly Caruso. The allegations are improper procedure and discourtesy. The date of incident was September 24th, 2018. This complaint was direct filed with the CIP on October 23rd, 2018. It was closed by Internal Affairs as information only. The panel voted to give us a 60-day extension until after receiving the completed Internal Affairs investigation. Ms. Hertzig came to the office here regarding the handling of an investigation into her father's hit-and-run death. She stated that she called the police and went to the police department, but the police were not doing anything to find the vehicle that hit her father. Initially, she was told her father had a seizure and fell off his bike. The ER trauma doctor stated that his injuries were consistent with being hit. She called the detective, and he has not returned her calls. Detective Sepulveda, of course, does not have a body-worn camera. Ms. Hertzig provided us with a statement in which she stated on September 23rd, the actual date is September 24th, she received a call from a civilian telling her father had been hit by a car around the corner from her home. When she arrived, her father had already been taken to the hospital by ambulance. The police were in the process of blocking off the road, and several people told her that her father had been hit by a blue Jaguar. The driver had gotten out of his car and then gotten back in his car and left the scene before the police arrived. She told the police that that the police didn't arrive right away, and someone tried to flag down two officers. The first officer didn't stop, and the second officer told her he was already on a call. And she believes her father was already in the ambulance when the police arrived. She met with Detective Sepulveda at Ryder, where her father had been taken. He was pleasant, but did not provide much information at the time. He came to her house a couple of days later to return her father's bicycle, and he tried to tell her that her father had a seizure and fell off his bike. She was told that someone at the scene that there was a rumor that rumor was started by the person driving the Jaguar. Her father told her, because her father didn't pass away for a couple of days after this incident, her father told her and a nurse and her sister that he had been hit by a car. A doctor who was on the scene told her that her father may have had a seizure. He was talking and was able to give them her phone number. The doctor also said her father's injuries, which included broken bones on the left side of his body, were caused by an impact and not just from having a seizure and falling off his bike. When Officer Sepulveda returned the bicycle, she told him not to make a report saying her father fell off the bike, and he got angry and told her she was trying to take the law into her own hands. A witness told her that he saw her father being projected into the air, but from the angle where he was standing, he could not see the impact. She felt the officer was invalidating this person's account by saying that he didn't see anything and he couldn't go by gut feelings. The officer seemed unwilling to investigate any further. Sometime after the date of incident, around September 29th, which is the day her father passed away, Officer Sepulveda returned to the house and took her father's bicycle again. That bicycle has not been returned. He never said why he returned to get the bicycle, and she believes the officer was just ready to write it off as her father fell off the bike. But the news showed up at the house after a witness called the Coconut Grove newspaper, and the mainstream media caught on to the story. The officer then had to pursue the case. She stated that the bicycle had a bent rear tire, but no severe damage because the bicycle is a sturdy electric bicycle. She hired an attorney and a private investigator, and they requested to see the bike on unable to do so. The police put out flyers saying they were looking for the Jaguar. She received anonymous calls giving information. Several people told her they tried to provide information but could not get through to the police. She said she had a problem with the officer, so she gave his cell phone number to her sister. And her sister, when she would get information, she would text the officer. Then she received a call from someone telling her, basically asking how she got the officer's number and telling him to stop texting the officer. She nor her sister ever received a follow-up call, case number, condolence call, or anything else. She has never heard from the police since her father passed away. She just wanted the police department. She just wanted to make sure the police department is doing everything to find the person responsible. Because her private investigator was able to get a picture of the driver of the Jaguar. She stated that she contacted Lieutenant Caruso of the Traffic Homicide Unit. Lieutenant Caruso told the complainant that the investigation was no longer being considered a homicide. The complainant said she was told that old people fall and there's not enough evidence of a homicide. The complainant said she is concerned about the investigation because the police department has failed to follow up on the blue Jaguar seen leaving the scene. And she got the impression the police department is too busy to do a thorough investigation. She contacted the net commander and was told that it's the detective's decision to close the case. We requested copies of the autopsy and medical examiner's reports, and we eventually did receive those. I got them this morning.
You got them this morning?
Yes.
We've been after these.
Got them this morning.
What did they say? Okay.
Those autopsy reports list the cause of death as blunt force trauma, and notes the blunt force injuries as a small contusion on the forehead and scalp, multiple bilateral rib fractures, a fracture of the sternum, and a fracture of the left lilac wing, which is the pelvis. We requested to receive the dispatch data from the call, and it shows that the call was transferred to Miami PD from Coral Gables PD. The data shows that a 24-minute time delay from the first phone pickup to the first unit's arrival. The data shows that the first officer arrived within 1 minute of being dispatched. So the delay is in dispatch, not with the officer. We received the internal affairs file. The file indicates the internal affairs investigator spoke to a Miss Sandra Byers, who's a possible witness, and she stated that she didn't witness the crash, nor did she tell anyone that, nor did any officer tell her that he could not stop because he was on his way to another call. She stated she waved at an officer from a far distance and believes the officer didn't see her, and she believes officers arrived as prompt as possible and acted professionally. Excuse me. CIP staff reviewed the department orders and SOPs and was unable to find any written directives requiring personnel to return phone calls, reply to text messages, or answer emails. The department orders considered are in your packet. Staff recommendation. The complainant stated Detective Sepulveda made no effort to locate the vehicle which possibly struck her father and left the scene. The vehicle is noted in the crash report, and the complainant stated flyers were passed out by Miami PD with the vehicle description in an attempt to locate the vehicle. Based on this, staff recommends the allegation of improper procedure be closed as not sustained because there's insufficient evidence to prove or disprove that allegation. The complainant also stated that she and her sister made several unsuccessful attempts to contact Detective Sepulveda. On one occasion, she was told to stop calling his cell phone. Staff reviewed the department orders and were unable to locate any requirement that family members be notified of the status of an investigation. We were also unable to locate any requirement that Miami PD personnel return phone calls, respond to text messages, or answer emails. Based on this, CIP staff recommends closing that allegation of improper procedure as a policy failure. Also, the complainant spoke to Lieutenant Kimberly Caruso, and during the conversation was told the incident was not a hit and run. Sometimes old people fall. Lieutenant Caruso's comments in violation of Department Order 1, Chapter 11, 11.6.13.6, tact and consideration. Based on this, staff recommends sustaining the allegation of discourtesy against Lieutenant Caruso.
What did you get a feeling from this lack of investigation.
As far as,
Well, it seems like nobody's doing anything and there was a fatality here.
well, I think they put out a flyer trying to locate the vehicle. I don't know where you go from there.
There were witnesses that alleged that have seen the incident.
No.
None?
No one actually saw the vehicle strike Mr. Hertzig. What they saw was someone said they saw him being projected into the air, but there's no one that actually saw a vehicle striking.
That area is in the Grove, right, if I recall? There's cameras around there, traffic cameras, aren't there? Is that reviewing those cameras part of an investigation in a case where there's a fatality?
They would be.
Now, if this was believed to have been a hit and run,
It depends on what kind of traffic cameras. What kind of traffic cameras are you talking about? Are you talking about red light cameras? Because they only activate when there's a red light violation.
well, I mean,
There's no.
They got rid of the red light camera program, so there are no traffic
The
cameras.
cameras aren't there.
are there any cameras at all?
Got it.
Do we know? Is there any cameras at all? It just seems a little odd that they would say that first it was the guy fell, and then they're putting flyers out, and then the officer came back and got the bike, picked it up again after some media got involved. And I don't know, it just seems like a lot of time went by before a true investigation occurred.
If anything at all.
And in that time, information gets lost. I didn't see the underlying reports, but was there any mention of the officers going out into the field?
There's no mention in any of the reports of looking for the vehicle.
Not the vehicle, but looking for witnesses.
There's no mention of any follow-up in the.
If there were a follow-up, if they had looked for witnesses, would there be a mention of that anywhere?
I would think there would be. I think that would be proper.
Okay. Any questions?
I do have one question. In regards to Lieutenant Caruso, what, do we have was there something in writing or something recorded or something that we heard her say that? Or we have a witness that heard her say that, or we just have the complainants?
There's a complaint, and the complaint's
That
here.
said that?
And she's here, by the way.
Right. Do you want me to get her?
She's here with her attorney.
Thank you.
You're suggesting to not sustain the allegation of improper procedure?
Correct.
Even though you state that the officer made no effort to locate the vehicle which possibly struck the bottle?
Correct. Well, again, they put out a flyer to follow up, looking for the vehicle. So there was some follow-up.
What about everything else that wasn't done, that would have been following procedure?
We don't know that. That's why it's not sustained, because we don't know what else they did. Because they didn't even mention that flyer in any of their reports. So, but they did do that. So we don't know what they did and did not do.
How can we find out what was done and what wasn't done?
Have to ask the officer.
And again, they don't want to cooperate.
Right. And so I think what Mike's saying is that the only thing we were able to find that showed that they actually looked for a vehicle was the flyer, which wasn't annotated in any report. And without us knowing what occurred since we weren't there, they would have to annotate it in these reports. But in the reports that we had, they didn't say they had anything or interviewed anything.
Right, but earlier when I asked them if there had been some kind of a search for witnesses, if that would be noted somewhere, he said yes.
It should be.
It
Yeah,
should
just
be.
like the flyer should have been too. It wasn't.
I mean,
so we're not saying they did or didn't do it. We just said we don't know.
We have
Well, I mean,
copies of all the reports.
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I hear
Are they
your
in the
frustration.
packet or not?
I mean, no, there's
Except for
improper
the
procedure here.
And I think, I mean,
It doesn't
it'd
really
be
help.
reasonable to go either way, except that based upon Mike's factual findings of what we can show, it wasn't in the report that they did.
No, but look, if you look at what the officer said to the woman about old people fall off bikes, okay? That implies that he didn't look for anybody to have hit him in the car.
But that was somebody else, that was Lieutenant Caruso.
Right, but that was a sentiment that was carried out throughout the entire beginning of the investigation.
Right.
But again, you know, the flyers are not even noted in there, so we don't know what they did and what they didn't do.
By the way, Mrs. Hertzig, that's always a name. Thank you very much for
It's
being
Ms.
here.
Hertzig.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate
I'm
it.
very appreciative of all of you being here.
Any questions for?
Well, I have one more question. In regarding to the police report, the crash summary was revised on November of 2017, almost 2 months after the fact. Do you know what was revised?
They added the fact that it's not a traffic related fatality.
Yeah, on page 2 of 4, on the traffic report,
Yeah, I think I
it
see that. Okay.
update
Yeah, I see
on
that.
November
Sorry.
1.
Oh, so it's just noted that he passed.
Page 73 of our packet?
All right.
What page in our packet?
Oh, I don't know.
67 of 280.
I think it's page 69 in the packet.
Oh,
Thank you.
67 is where it starts.
oh, okay. Oh, this, okay.
I don't know, because I have the blue file.
Yeah, no, you're right.
On
It starts at 67.
and on page 73, it's also noted that update on on November 1st, the investigation is complete and ruled as a non-traffic fatality.
So a lot of injuries for a non-traffic fatality.
And this was before the autopsy report, before they received the autopsy report? Do we know?
I don't know when they
no,
received it.
We know we received it today,
Right.
so it wasn't necessarily.
Can I answer a question?
That's what she said.
Ma'am,
Through the chair.
When they came back to ask for the bike, were you the one that handed them the bike? What was that interaction? Can you tell us what happened in that moment? What did they say to you?
I mean, there's a lot of other things that I would like to share, but what he said, he just came back and said they needed the bike again because I was starting to, from the original moment, before they did any investigation, they were trying to say that there was a medical reason and it was an old person that just fell off his bike and had an accident, which doesn't go along with the injury. So from the very beginning, I was trying to get him to actually investigate when they were trying to just write it off as old person falls off bike and dies, which wasn't what happened. And it doesn't explain the person stopping their car, getting out, telling people my dad had a seizure, all the other things. There's still things that I want answered. And the way we were treated by, he was very rude to us. He didn't respond to any calls, and I just want to say, as far as them putting out the notice, that was, because the news got involved, and they needed to do that. But they didn't, what they put on the notice was a phone number, and nobody answered at the number. I called multiple times. Apparently, the detective left to go to the Panhandle for the hurricane, so nobody responded to anybody who called in that number on the thing they put on the news. Nobody received any calls. I tried to call several times myself. I tried to call the detective, his cell phone number. My sister tried to call. Nothing.
Was there a voicemail or not?
Nothing. I left messages. I called. I was getting desperate. And then I myself was actually trying to follow up on calls from locals and neighbors with ideas of who. I mean, how many Blue Jaguars are there? We have a photo. I don't know if it's in there. Okay.
If I can jump in.
This is my lawyer. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to let my emotions get the best of me, but it's very.
Yes, sir. My name is Todd Michaels. I represent the Sixers family in an unrelated matter. When this happened, obviously we have been helping with this as well. It was not my intention to speak today, but I do think there are some facts that do need to get out there, because what this family really wants is answers, and if somebody is responsible for having her father who's a dynamic and wonderful human being, we just want to make sure that that person is held responsible.
Thank you, sir.
To me, what was frustrating in terms of figuring that out was there was a witness who was in a car behind the car that was closest to the bicycle. And while this witness couldn't see contact because he had a car between him and the bicycle, he was able to see the placement of the vehicles and the manner in which her father was pedaled off the bike, which was more concerned with some kind of impact than it was with simply falling. Now, we don't know. It could have been that he rode into a concrete block that was in the middle of the road. It could have been that he was hit by a car. But certainly something more happened than an old person falling off a bike. What was frustrating was we hired an investigator to help the family who was able to go out and talk to all the different people. And there was a doctor who was driving his kids to school who got out of his car to help her father when he was lying on the ground. The doctor was driving his two daughters to school, and the daughter saw the father doing something heroic, helping an injured person on the ground, and took a picture with a cell phone camera which captured the person who had been driving that car that was believed to be a blue Jaguar close in the front. So there is a visual depiction of him, not that they were trying to take his picture, they were taking their dad, but he's right there. Even if it's just a matter of closing out and finding out what the real story is, what actually happened. The best witness in the world, other than her father, who did not die instantly, he lived for a while, a number of days after, and he was very clear in the hospital that he got hit by a car. There was a witness who was right there, but the bird's eye view, whether he had contact or whether he simply saw it. There was a description of his car, there was a photograph of him, and all of this stuff was given, I believe, was given to the police. We certainly made them aware that it existed. To follow up, here's a picture, you know it's a blue Jaguar, you have the ability to check car registrations, to talk to auto dealerships. There's not that many blue Jaguars, and we'll know, we know who the driver was. And it was soon after that we're just told it was being closed. And the indication was that he fell off his bike, and I think that was where the real frustration came. And I hear what you're saying about, it didn't mention the flyers, but if the police aren't willing to talk and tell us what they did, defend the allegation, I think it's a fair assumption that there wasn't more done. If they went and did this work, it's very easy to say, we did do our job. Here's what was done. I'm not in the business of criticizing the police, and this isn't a police brutality case or something of that nature, but their function is to investigate when crimes happen so that victims' families can have answers.
Well, this is why I'm asking what was said, because I'm trying to piece together what might have been done in the background, because again, because they're not saying anything, I'm trying to figure out what they might say.
And see, the other point I'd like to make is the incident when it happened, the Coconut Grove, it happened in the main section of Coconut Grove, and the police did not show up for more than 11 minutes. The person who was involved in the accident stopped the blue Jaguar, pulled over, waited, made a phone call, and the police never came. If the police had showed up on time, then we wouldn't have had all this mystery around it.
And I think it was 24 minutes.
And I want that addressed too. Why didn't the police come? My father was an educator who served his community for 30 years. He was a noble man. He paid his taxes. We deserve the police to thoroughly investigate, and they could identify the person who was involved. And he's very suspicious because the doctor who stopped, the first person he spoke to was this blue Jaguar driver, and that person told him my dad had a seizure. He started that rumor. My dad was on his deathbed, totally torn open, his injuries way too severe, and I was told by doctors and the autopsy, way too severe. And my dad was riding his bike to work. He still worked. He was 85. There's a lot of ageism here. But he was still living life fully, had a trip planned with his grandchildren. He was fine. He was not going to die that day. He did not have anything medical that happened to him. He rode that bike all the time. He was very safe. Something happened. The person was there. So why couldn't the police find that person? And like the police report, I get it back, it's empty. I wait forever, and I get it back, it's empty. And I know that they didn't follow up on anything. They only put that on the news, I believe, because they were pressured to when the news started showing up at my house. But yet, they did not follow up. So you know, anybody who called the number for information, you cannot get through. And I couldn't even get through to him. He ignored our calls. He was up in the panhandle, and it did nothing. Apparently, I want to know. So I want them. It shouldn't be that hard to find the person. We have a photo of him, and at least here he was. If anything, he was the closest witness. So my father was laying on his deathbed saying, "I did not have a seizure." He was, you know, he was almost dying, and he was screaming that you find the person. And he was, you know, those were some of his last words. So, yeah.
I think that one issue bears some conversation. That, my understanding is the call was made timely to police, and then there was a 24-minute lag before the officer was dispatched. Once the officer was dispatched, he was there in a minute. But dispatch, it's not supposed to take 24 minutes for that call to be routed. I mean, I'm not a police procedure expert, but I'd imagine when something like this happens, it's someone's lying on the ground, it's not supposed to take 24 minutes for an officer to get notification that they're supposed to go out to the scene, and that's from the report which was generated.
Right, but I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think that's something that is within our purview to discuss or investigate. We're just looking into the officer's conduct here.
Right, and that's obviously on the dispatch side, it might be a procedural issue, but the reason why that's so important here is this wasn't a hit and run driver. The person was on the scene for a period of time, and he might have left innocently because doctors were there and he had to go to work, and he might have left because he decided to, but had it not taken 24 minutes for the officer to get the dispatch, it took him 1 minute to arrive after they did, this person would have been there and would have been able to at least be talked to or identified.
Did the police ever interview your father?
Yes, but my father was completely drugged out. Like it was right after the accident. He went
And they never went back.
But my father said at that time, he just didn't know what happened. He knew he didn't just fall off his bike, and he knew it wasn't something medical. He was something hit him, and he flew off his bike, and the guy was right there, and he stopped his car. He was, you know, everything. And you know, the person who witnessed it, they said their gut feeling was my dad had just been hit. Well, I know in legal, gut feelings don't mean anything, but they mean something to me. And I've done a lot of, you know, research on my own, which is terrible that the police weren't supporting me. But that witness, also when he saw the guy get in his car and drive away, he panicked, and he was helping my dad, but he wanted to chase the guy. That was because he was so confident. But he cannot say that. It's like right now, you know, he cannot say that he saw the guy hit my dad, but he saw at the point of contact, he saw my dad fly through the air. So, you know, it's all the factors. The police didn't show up. The way Detective Sepulveda treated my family, and they did not even contact us. After the initial contact, when he came and took the bike the second time, I never heard from him again. He never answered any calls. He had given my sister his cell phone number. Nothing. We did not hear from anything until the lieutenant heard that I had reported them. Then she called me, and she gave me a very hard time of why I didn't call her first. I said, I tried to call so many people for help, and no one called. That's why I called. I was referred to the CIP. So when I went to see her, I mean, they were not happy that I had, you know, but I was like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not getting anything. I'm calling, I'm trying to get help. There's nothing. They didn't even call me after my father died. Nothing. So when I went to see her, she made several comments that were very ageist, and also that they were very busy and didn't have time for this case, and that it was just, it seemed to me what she was saying, they just saw an old person, old people fall all the time. It was so outrageous. My father's injuries, he was lacerated, his arteries were torn. This is not something that happens when someone falls off their bike. And even though the autopsy determined it as blunt force injury, there was no medical reason. He had the second reason was heart, you know, something, but that wasn't what caused the accident. It was because of all the drugs and all the injuries. he died from blunt force injury. And the injuries were way too severe for it to be. And I spoke to the doctors and the surgeons, and like nothing adds up to them just dismissing it as old person fall off the bike. And it doesn't make sense to me. Why, when they find the person who at least was the #1 witness, who was there at the scene, we have a photo of him, and why were we treated so poorly by everybody, all the police? Why was the police so rude and so inhuman to us?
Did you get the bike back?
My lawyers went and finally picked it up. It took a lot, like just being ignored, calling, you know, nothing, anyway.
Was the
I'm very disturbed that this is what happens when an elder in our community who has served his community for his whole life, when something happens around the corner from his house, and this is the way that it's handled in Miami. And I've taken a break from this for a few months now for my own well-being, but I do plan to revisit it and share my experience, because it's unacceptable, and my father and anybody deserves better.
Is the rear wheel, how damaged was the rear wheel?
No, there was not damage, and the bike was a very sturdy bike, and it could have been bumped on the tire without damage. And so there was not like, the handlebars were slightly bent. It also could have been like that, like something could have happened, but it wasn't like, see, the Kimberly Caruso also kept saying that his injuries were consistent with a boxcar, and he wasn't hit by a boxcar. But that's not, so that's what she was saying to me. Like, they just kept, you know, I feel like I was being gaslighted. Like, everything was, it became very surreal. But I was like, no, we never suggested that he was run over. Like, I never thought that he was run over. We know that he,
The cars were moving at a slow speed and in the same virtual direction, so it wasn't a hit, it would have been a half type hit from behind, as opposed to a broadside or something.
but something hit him to propel him, and there was no like rocks in the road or holes in the road, or, you know, and it was like, he wouldn't have been going fast. Like, that was the other thing. They were like, oh, there's no way, because where it was from our house, and he rode that every day, and he was like, it's just.
So just to clear up this one last thing that's in my mind. They didn't say there was no conversation the second time when they came by to pick up the bike. They didn't give you any explanation.
He came and he said he needs, because I was saying they need to further investigate, because they were already, this was before he even died, he was like in the hospital, they already were just saying, he was leaving to go up to the Panhandle or something, he just already was trying to close the case. And then when I got the news and everything involved, he then came back and got the bike. He didn't really say much. No, he came and just picked up the bike.
When was the last time you spoke to anyone from the department?
The last time I spoke to anyone from the department was when I was called in by Kimberly Caruso, the lieutenant. I never saw or heard from Sepulveda again from the day he took the bike. Never heard from him again. I tried to contact him like 100 times. Never heard from him again.
What was the date on that?
That was before my father passed away, so it was like September 27th or 28th. It was in between the time he was hit and he died. And so that was the last time I heard from him, and then I heard nothing until they called me to come in for the meeting, which was, you know, when that was, and that was the last time I heard anything from them. They just said they were closing the case. They said that, you know, old people fall and die all the time. There's a bunch of comments she made that were just like, you know, like, oh, so would this be different if it was a 20-year-old that was riding their bike, you know, and got killed? Like, why doesn't this deserve a proper investigation? My father mattered, and his life mattered, and he deserves a proper investigation, and we need our police to work for us and identify the person who was at the point of contact and there, And I want to know, and so do all my neighbors and my community, why the police didn't show up on time.
Let me speak for the investigator. I think what we heard was that the call got routed to Coral Gables first. And there was a delay between the time Coral Gables passed it on to Miami. Once the call was dispatched, it took the officer about a minute to get there.
Because the ambulance came right away. But why did that happen?
Isn't 37th Avenue?
Yeah.
That's right.
Right, that's the borderline of Coral Gables.
If you dial 911.
Well, that's a bad system, because then they should have, that's a faulty system.
That's the way 911 works.
But
It
that's
will run
wrong.
to the closest.
Yeah, I've been behind it. I've had a fire in my house and I lived on Brady County. Coral Gables came in first, and that was a delay. So it happens.
But they need to have a better system.
It does, but there's nothing that this panel can do.
Yeah.
That is the city.
All right.
All right, any questions from the panel?
Yeah, and Mr. Hertzig, first of all, thank you so much for coming in here today. And I know I speak for the rest of the members that they're really sorry for your loss. And although maybe they didn't express it, we heard them ask a lot of questions because I know my colleagues and they want to get to the bottom of this just like you.
Thank you
But
so
I know
much.
that we all terribly sympathize with your loss and your family's loss and the ordeal that you've obviously been through. So we really appreciate you coming in here today to share your experience.
Thank you so much.
And so thank you for that. I have a couple of questions that I can. We were waiting to get the completed internal affairs report, is that right?
Yes,
Okay, did we get that report?
yes,
Do we have that report?
we do. They close this as an information only.
Okay, now I have the one IA document I have that looks like it was from,
Clearly, they absolutely did not write off that it was a hit and run. They just, it was undetermined. He died of blunt force injury, so.
I think that's consistent with what I quickly read just
Yeah.
now. Mr. Block?
Where Kimberly Crusoe had tried to say that the medical examiner, said it was she was trying to say it was a medical accident, which I was like, no, it was not, And then when I spoke to the medical examiner, he said, no, this is what, he could not say that it was not a hit and run.
If I may, it appears that with the medical examiner, I guess the doctor does the autopsy, but they have an investigative arm also, and they don't release the report until their investigative arm finishes whatever they're doing with the report.
Yeah.
Which by what we have is not much.
Okay.
And that was the delay in us getting it. We can't get it until they release it to their investigative branch or its arm releases the report.
Similar to chapter 1.
I didn't finish my
Yes.
your question.
Very
While that report was dated September 30th, 2018, the toxicology report did not return until November 4th, 2018. So one could argue that it wasn't
2018
closed
or
until after.
19?
18. 18.
And we didn't get the case until October 10th of 19. So we got the case a
I'm
year
sorry,
after.
Rodney.
We got the case a year after that concluded. So it wasn't like we had the ability to request it a year before. By the time we requested it, and by the time we got the case, it was only 2 months difference.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what was the timing of the traffic report with respect to the medical exam. So that medical examiner report was out in public as of November 2018?
No, it's not public. It's not.
So it's
Again, that's-
completed.
It's completed, but again, as long as there's an open investigation
By,
by their office, they have their own investigative branch, or as long as they're doing their investigation, they don't release the report. And we cannot get it until they're done with whatever investigation they say they're done.
and why do you believe that they were still investigating?
Because I called them and I spoke to them and they said they were.
What were they investigating?
Don't know.
Well, I mean, was it something that was relevant to the report? I mean, why, it just seems odd that they would release their report or complete their report if they were still parts of the case they were still investigating.
they did not release the report, while they were still investigating.
Yeah, complete the report, sign off on it.
I guess, again, that's the doctor signed off on it, the pathologist, I guess you might call them, and finished just their report. And then again, there's an investigative branch that can hold the report up.
I guess what I'm saying, if they're holding it up because they're investigating something,
Right.
it might be useful to know what they're investigating.
Well, we have the whole report, and as I said, it doesn't seem like they did much of an investigation. It's like, what, a page? Less than a page of what they say they were holding it up
It
for.
was absolutely shocking
Did you
to
have
get
this?
the police report back. No.
You said the toxicology report was finished on
November 4th.
November 4th.
2018.
And they need that toxicology report to basically close the case?
I mean, I don't know what their rules are, but it would seem to me that
It would be
the
necessary.
autopsy, it's
So how
part
do
of
they-
the autopsy, thus you could argue that it's not closed
Please,
until,
They closed
They receive
it, they closed the non-fatality, non-traffic fatality on November the 1st. So that's even before the toxicology report came out.
sure.
So I think there's a fault in that.
And once again, we got the report today, so some
It
of
was
it.
Monday.
Oh, Monday, okay.
All right.
All right, just to kind of clear things up in my head. They couldn't release this information because there was an investigation going on. At what point, when did the investigation stop, and when could they have given us the report?
That I don't know. I can only tell you when I got the report.
Which was
Monday.
Yep.
This Monday. This Monday. December the 2nd.
So we don't know when this investigation ended, we don't know.
Well, according to they deemed it a non,
Well, you're talking about the investigation.
You're talking about two
medical
different,
examiner.
you're talking about two different, you're talking about PD.
Right.
He's talking about the medical
Medical
examiner.
examiner.
Again, the medical examiner report is very, very vague in terms of their investigation.
Did you get a copy of that?
Very vague and very shallow.
Yeah.
This morning, on Monday, when he received the ME's report, they said, apologize for the delay, this case is no longer under investigation, and it should have been sent out to you months ago. I'm not sure who gave you the incorrect information, please see attached.
Yeah, I suspected that it was months that have been, that was delayed.
This may not have any consequence to the case, but was it a regular bike or a motorized bike?
It was a motorized bike,
Okay.
but it was, well, it's called an electric bike.
Yeah.
But, and they tried to make a big deal out of that, but I will say, I researched the bike thoroughly, and the maximum speed it can go is 15 miles per hour, which is
Can I ask you?
not even the same as, no, it's no different than a manual.
I own two of those.
Yeah, and he would not, there's no, like, she was like, well, that thing, Kimberly Caruso was trying to blame it on the bike, and the thing is, first of all, where it happened it was right around the corner from our house. He would not have been going fast. And my dad, he didn't drive, like, he wasn't going 15 miles an hour. Like, I know that. He was crossing the road there, or whatever, or going along the road, whatever was going on.
We all tend to be a little more careful with HS.
Yeah, but I don't think it's relevant. Like, I think that she tried to make that, like, oh, he was riding this motorized bike. It was an electric bike that was very sturdy. That's why it would have been able to handle, like, a bump from, when the guy hit him.
Yes, I understand.
Someone could go up and just, like, bump him from behind, and enough to make him impact. That's what I believe happened.
It had pedals as well, and he was teaching at Miami-Dade College, and it was not too far from home. I think he would sort of sometimes use his bicycle, probably sometimes use it.
Yeah, I don't think he was, like, cruising along. Like, there's no way he was at that location. And I think.
Any more questions, folks?
I just want to say that, even if we give the officers the benefit of the doubt, okay, so the officer arrives, apparently there was some rumor going around that he wasn't hit, he had a seizure and fell.
Which was started by them.
Right, and he sees the man on the floor, he's not a medical professional, he can't really tell the extent of the injuries. And again, this is just being devil's advocate and giving the officer the benefit of the doubt. He doesn't know the extent of the injuries. the fact that somebody did say to him, though, hey, listen, you know, there was a car there were other people there. At a minimum, there should have been some curiosity, some inquisitiveness on his part to reach out and try to find these people, just to verify that that this was, you know, in fact just a seizure and that he fell or whatever the case may be. But nothing was done. He just heavily relied on this rumor. And I mean, again, I don't know what the man looked like when he was there. I'm sorry.
Show you a picture of him.
I don't want but still, it seems that there was enough there for the officer to at least look into the possibility of it being a hit and run. And I hope you guys consider that when deciding how to vote on the improper procedure.
Okay, I just have Mr. Chair, just some clarification. I'm trying to follow all the paperwork here, but the sum total of the investigation, that's in the, basically, I guess the traffic report, right? That's where all the investigation is really being done.
Should be, yeah.
IA just basically relies on that.
Right, they did speak to one person, Internal Affairs did.
And that report starts on page 66 of our packet. And
Yes.
am I correct that on page 88 is basically the conclusion?
Yes.
Okay, and the conclusion is on September 30th, 2018, Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office, Dr. Alamar Hernandez determined that the cause of death was due to blunt force trauma with contributory cause, hypertensive heart disease, and the manner of death was ruled an accident. Based on information provided to me by the City of Miami Traffic Homicide Unit and Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office, this case is non-criminal, is being closed as accident, and is being closed as accident. So it sounds like, given the date of the reference to the medical examiner's report, September 30th, which is apparently the date of the medical examiner report that we now have, that this investigating officer had that report and relied on it. So my question is, does the report anywhere say that this was accidental?
Yeah, which report?
Medical examiner.
I didn't see that. I just read it quickly. I did not see the word accident.
And I spoke to them, and clearly, you could not determine that.
On the ME's website, when you go to request a record, it does list it as accidental.
Is that just category listing,
Right.
or is it like a?
According to the investigator Fernandez from which is it's in there, the ME's office, all, even if it was a hit and run or if it was a non-hit and run, it would be listed as an accident by them.
And even if it was accidental, in other words, let's assume that a car was the cause of the injury and ultimately death, even if it was accidental, the fact that it was a collision with a car is not ruled out by the autopsy report.
Correct. It's not. He could not say either way.
Mr. Lucas, are we 100% sure we got all the reports?
Yes.
Well,
but we requested everything, and
Okay.
we got back the things we requested. However, we can't request things that we don't know exist. And that's really some of the reason why it's a not sustained for us, because we just.
Are there any 301s or any supplemental reports that we haven't received at the files that we have been completed.
Say again?
Supplemental reports, 301s.
This is the supplemental report, page 88. That's the part of the supplemental report from
That's the narrative.
page 66, the page that Mr. Block was talking about, the crash summary report. Those are the that's what we got when we asked for the supplemental reports. From page 66 through page 88.
I have a, it seems to be, there's something we seem to be missing.
And what might that be?
Documentation of the steps taken to identify
And
the vehicle.
that's what I'm saying. This is what we got, and that's why we recommend they not sustain, because we can't say either way.
Chair, are we going into a timeline?
Wait,
What was
Are we
it?
going into a timeline? Do we have time
To
to?
extend it,
I
no,
don't
we
think
don't.
so,
No,
we can.
We don't have time,
Oh, we received it in October of 19.
but we asked for an
we suspend.
extension.
Oh, wait, okay, gotcha.
No, 16
So the answer is.
No, we don't have any more time. What, if you did, what would you be looking for, Mr.
I just
Rojas?
want to make sure that there's no other reports that we haven't received. That-
You know, short of going over there myself and going to their filing cabinets, we requested the reports repeatedly. And I have to assume that when they send me the reports and they tell me that the request has been fulfilled, which they do, that's true. I mean, you know, do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, I don't have free range access to.
I just want to make sure we're asking for the right information.
We request, and our request reads, any and all reports related to this incident, and this is what we got.
So we basically keep asking for broad information and we receive shallow information.
Or none.
We get,
More like none.
and we're at the mercy where we have to take what they give us.
I don't know if I can, am I violating some kind of HIPAA rule if I read a portion of this right now?
I don't think so, I think it's a public record. Right.
This is dated September 30th, 2008.
What is it?
18.
Autopsy?
The investigative report, the medical examiner. And here he writes, or she writes, let's see if I can find it again. It is unknown at this time if the decedent had a medical event and collapsed or if he was struck by a vehicle. So it's unknown either way, and it should have been investigated either way.
And can I say one more thing, please?
Yes, ma'am.
So the doctor, Dr. Lennon, who works at Ryder, and he happened to be driving along, his children took the photograph. And so I saw him at Ryder, he came in to check on my dad. And that was when Sepulveda was already trying to say my dad had the seizure, and this conflict started. And I was, like, my dad was screaming, no, I didn't have a seizure, I didn't. So I asked this doctor, I said, well, you saw my father. And he goes, no, he was not someone who just had a seizure. And then I asked, and this was the doctor who was at the scene with my father. He said, no.
Did this happen in front of Sepulveda?
Yes, he said what?
Did this happen in front of Sepulveda?
No.
Okay.
This is when, in the hospital, I saw the doctor. He came up to me and he said, I was at the scene. I said, oh my God, you were there? And he said, yes. I said, please tell me, because they're trying to say my dad had a seizure. He goes, no, he was not someone who just had a seizure. And I said, they're trying to say he just fell off his bike. I mean, can you imagine, I'm going through this and my father's laying there dying, I'm having to, you know. So he said to me, his injuries are way too severe. And this was the doctor, his name is Dr. Lennon, he said to me, no, he didn't just fall off his bike, he did not, you know, he affirmed that for me. And that's when I started, you know, having this with Sepulveda. That's when he came back and got the bike, because I was like, no, don't you dare write down that he had a seizure. He did not have a seizure. The doctors are saying he didn't, my father's saying he didn't. the person who started the rumor that he had a seizure was the person driving the blue Jaguar. So, you know, and the medical examiner also had been in the police, you know, he had been dealing with the police, so that's why I called him. He got information from the police. So then I talked to him and I asked him, can you say that my dad was not hit? And he said, no, I cannot say that. I said, weren't the injuries, the doctor told me the injuries were so severe. He goes, yes, he died of blood force injury. So, you know, I think that my father and our family and our community deserve to know who that person was, and they need to be questioned. If there's not enough evidence for them to arrest him, then, you know, maybe he has some other information, or what did he see? I would hope that I live in a society that feels that that's important. That our family, that this person who was at the scene, right there, left the scene when the police didn't show up, told a lie that my dad had a seizure. We have a photo, he drives a blue Jaguar. Would you want to know who that person was if it was your father?
Can I ask a quick question, and maybe to the attorney as well? You had mentioned that there was some photographs of people that a little girl took, as well as some people that stopped by. Do you have any copies or information on that? 'Cause we don't have that, I believe, in our file or anything like that. So that would be helpful.
Do
And
you
we
have
still
a
have a
copy
couple
of the
weeks until
photo
our
of the
meeting.
person?
Did you
Yeah.
share that with the police officer too?
I told him I had it.
But he never,
They just, you know, now it's all like, I don't think I ever.
because he never requested, you told him
Did
he
the
had it, but he never
investigator,
requested him.
because we have a private investigator that, was also, I thought that they were giving it to him, you know.
I know that its existence was made known to the police. I believe that a copy was given. I cannot say that with any certainty as I sit here now.
It would also be safe to assume if it did exist, and if they did have it and requested it, they should have included it, and it wasn't included. So really, any information that you both may have, I know you met with our investigator, Michael Lucas, and I don't know how much information you gave him, but if you have anything else that would assist, you know, we still have a couple weeks or so until our meeting, maybe we can still find some more information.
Yeah, the photo, the doctor, Dr. Lennon, who,
What kind of doctor is he?
he is the, my sister just sent me
Yeah,
that.
maybe.
He's the medical
Yeah.
director at Ryder, I believe.
Do we have any,
Do you have the picture handy?
I can give you the picture.
Yeah, anything that you guys have would be helpful.
do we need to make a motion to continue that, or it's just?
No, we still have time before the meeting,
Alright,
in
so
about
what-
2 weeks.
Why don't we do that? Ma'am, you're more than welcome
Yeah.
to come to our meeting.
not gonna take a vote?
Please do.
No, we should take a vote. No,
I
we should take the
absolutely
votes.
will be there, because
We
there's
should
also an
take a
issue
I'm
with
saying
vote.
about the
the
extended.
safety of the roads.
No,
His name is
continue, ma'am,
Edward
for you
Burke
to-
Linning,
before
and
the
he's a
meeting.
surgical clinical care for trauma
That's what I
surgery.
meant, that's
So
what I
he's
meant.
quite qualified to
Alright,
determine.
okay, folks, I am ready to detain them.
Okay, I'm entertaining, I want to move proper procedure for sustaining.
Alright, second on that motion?
Second.
Alright, all those in favor?
I,
Aye. So that motion passes.
Any nays?
No.
No, it's unanimous.
He's one that told me.
Do we have a second motion?
We don't have to take a vote on the policy failure issue, right?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, it's, I mean, unless you don't wanna have a recommendation.
If you want to recommend that
No,
to
no,
the
it is.
full board, you would need to take a
I-
vote. If you don't want to recommend it, then you don't need to take a vote. It would
I
go
just
to
talked
staff
to,
recommendation.
I just talked to Mr. Rivera about this
Is
briefly,
that
and
him over there?
and I asked him if he knew off the top of his head if there were common and best practices, you know, in regards to responding to communications. And correct me if I'm wrong, but there was nothing off the top of your head, but that was something that was going to be researched.
Yeah, I think Rich maybe still be looking into some of that stuff. I had kind of tipped him off to this, that it'll probably be a question on today's meeting. So maybe he's still kind of digging up stuff. But
I mean,
as John said.
to that end, it might be premature to start making recommendations without having enough or more information. Perhaps, do you think you would have enough time to have more information to present to the full panel?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we can go without record.
I would recommend to the panel, the committee right now, to please forego any discussion on this until we have a better idea and interpretation by Mr. Rivera at the full panel.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then as long as we bring it up at the full panel meeting, that'd be.
I just want to say, Kimberly Caruso, she absolutely did know that we had a photograph, because when at the meeting, when she was saying she was closing the case, but she said they don't have, I remember saying they didn't have time, they have so many cases, like, it just didn't seem important.
Well, it is important to us, ma'am.
Thank you.
We would appreciate you handing it over to us.
Didn't I send it to you, Mr. Lucas?
No, you did not.
I did not send you the photo, okay.
He will give you his card,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Okay.
Sir?
Okay.
Oh, here you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
It's all.
We will
Okay, so
appreciate that, and then we will.
Either something having to do with a medical condition or whether there's an impact with the vehicle, and there's no subsequent follow-up by the homicide, the traffic investigation department, to me was a failure on the part of the department and the officers as well.
Well, that's exactly why I was sustaining it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that was
I
making very
agree.
clear.
Yeah, that's exactly
So,
it.
I don't
There's a lot
know
of
if
stuff that could follow
maybe
up
we ought to have a subsequent motion to clarify our grounds.
And you want this on the entirety of the department, or the homicide, or IA,
No.
or what were you thinking?
Well, the detective, no? I mean,
Well, our original motion was pertaining to,
The
Detective.
detective.
I wasn't too sure if you wanted to include, because you said the department, I didn't know if you.
Maybe we don't need a motion, maybe we just,
Just
I don't really
clarification.
know, maybe we need to get a ruling on that, because the articulated basis in the packet is different than I and several others voted to sustain.
Right, well, it's totally different because we are not sustained, so it
Yeah.
would be sustained, and then we would articulate it as, I guess you did, and everyone else.
Lack of diligence and follow.
yeah,
Okay,
but
but
not
what-
at the department though, are you talking about the
Well, I guess
detective?
there's
That's
two
what I'm
aspects.
talking about.
One is, who are we making the motion pertaining to, the people or entities? And number two is, do we need to do anything to clarify what exactly the allegation refers to?
If you want, you can, you don't have to, as this is going to recommendation to the full panel, and you can make that clarification as to what each individual member was thinking, if the individual member so chooses before the panel. If you would prefer, you can make a motion to direct staff to write up what the reason
All right,
was.
well, let's do this then, so it's clear for the full panel, in the narrative that the full panel's gonna get. You can have some narrative about
Did you
what
send it?
at least 3 members indicated their reasons for sustaining work.
As the complaints committee recommendation?
Yeah.
That would
Or
be,
or at least 3 members.
that would be a motion to, do you want to make a motion to
Okay,
direct staff
I
to do
move that we include that. And I don't know, does let me just ask, does anyone else on this group?
Just be specific about the motion, and let's
Okay.
go with the motion.
So why don't we try this? I don't know if people agree. To a motion to clarify our prior motion to indicate that the basis for sustaining the allegations were the 2 prior grounds that I gave. A, just a general lack of diligence and follow-up and investigation of the incident. And B, specifically failing to take note of the fact that the medical examiner's report, on which the traffic report explicitly refers to, the medical examiner's report explicitly states that an accident with a vehicle or collision with a vehicle could not be ruled out, which would have further militated, prompted more investigation, particularly given evidence that we've heard today that specific information about the type of vehicle that was reportedly involved and the person who may have been driving that vehicle reportedly involved was available. And given the relatively rareness of that kind of vehicle, a blue Jaguar, and a photograph of the individual involved, it may have been something that investigation might have proved fruitful for, one way or the other.
Is that a sustainable motion?
Yeah, I mean, you're directing staff to include that as a narrative.
And to clarify what our prior motion was.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is just for the detective though, it's not the
At this
department,
point.
okay.
Just for the, that was something to follow
I think it's just so that when this gets to the full
We know
panel,
why we did it.
the full panel will be clear as to what our recommendation is and why.
Okay, so I have a motion on the table. Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Thank you, Jason.
I just
Now.
recalled one more, I recalled an answer to your question, when you asked about him getting the bike again. I remember now what happened is, I was going there the same time, like at 6 in the morning, to the spot where my dad was, because the police weren't doing anything. I went there myself every morning just to see cars driving by, and he was there one day, like later, he showed up, and then he saw me, and this was in between the time that my dad, it was like the day before he died, and he said to me then, you know, and I told him, look, I'm not letting this, you know, he saw me out there looking, and then that's when I went in his car home to get the bike. He said, well, I'm gonna get the bike again, and he took me back to my house and took the bike, so.
Okay.
And that was because I kept like saying to him, no, don't close this case, and, you know, my dad was there.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Again, we are very, very, very sorry for your loss, ma'am.
Thank you.
We appreciate your time, we appreciate you being here. As a panel, we have made, I think, first of all, the first motion that we passed is sustaining the allegation of conspiracy. The second motion.
We haven't done that one.
No, you haven't done that one.
The motion that I feel is very important is the one that my colleague here proposed and we passed. Anyways, please, can we vote on that one?
This great. Well, I have a question. What is Lieutenant Caruso's? Was she part of this?
She's the supervisor in charge of the unit that was investigating.
Okay. Because the complainant just said something that she told Lieutenant Caruso that there was a picture also. So she didn't follow up on that one. Is that what you're saying, right?
Yeah, she was already then, she
Like, it's done, it's
called
over
me
with.
in. First, they didn't contact me at all until they heard that I contacted this. And then she contacted me and gave me a hard time, and then she called me in. And when I went in there, that's when we told her, well, we have a picture. And they didn't ask, they were already deciding. Like she just made it clear to me they don't have time. It was just like this old person that.
I have a vague recollection that it is on the same track, but somewhat differs. And I told Amy that I am not certain about this, which is why I don't want it to be taken as gospel. But I think what I remember was a statement to the effect of that there was a picture, and the statement back wasn't so much that we don't have time as much as it was the determination's been made that he wasn't hit, and therefore, at this point, we can't go and identify the guy. I don't remember the exact word. Somewhat along the lines of the investigation determined that he wasn't hit, and therefore, we don't need that. Something of that nature, and again, that is very, very vague.
Well, she said the medical examiner. That's why I went home and called the medical examiner, and he told me something different.
So besides discourtesy, would it be too much to also put a proper procedure on her for not following
If you
up on
feel,
that one?
then we can vote on it.
Okay. I move.
Okay, be specific if there was a motion.
Well, I would say a proper procedure on Lieutenant Caruso due to the fact that she was presented with additional information and she said, well, it's already closed, we're done. We're not doing it anymore. So along with the discourtesy, I just feel that it's a little bit stronger. If she was to look, I have information here, oh, it's already done. That's where I'm getting at. I know it's discourtesy for sure, but I just think that she just wanted to, not do enough paperwork, and that's why she didn't want to follow up.
Mr. Lucas, would you have any
What do
input
you-
on this, in terms of it being a proper procedure?
No.
No input, or
No
no
input.
proper procedure?
No input.
So before,
Yes, before I do that, yeah?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, we have to get going here, guys. So please, make a motion on that one if you can. You've made a motion.
Okay, I can bring it up to the main meeting if necessary. I'll just move for discourtity then.
Okay.
To sustain discourtesy. I'll
withdraw
I'll
your
withdraw
file.
that motion and I'll move forward the discourtesy. I'll move to accept staff
recommended by
recommendation
staff.
of sustained.
All right, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Wait, you need a
A
second.
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 Did somebody second?
Who's the second?
On the
Steve,
discourtesy, sustain the discourtesy.
second on the allegation of conspiracy.
Sustain the discourtesy.
Thanks, Steve.
All right.
Was it Steve?
Steve,
Steve.
Steve took
Vote, yes.
Right, so I think everyone already voted.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Mr. Chair, I'll be very quick.
Yeah.
One other motion I'd like to make, and that is that we draft a letter both to traffic homicide and internal affairs, advising them to, or requesting that they reopen their investigation based on this new evidence that apparently was not considered.
No, that's fine. It's just a
That's fine.
recommendation to the
Okay,
panel.
all right,
The panel's
then,
gonna decide if you guys right.
do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Mrs. Hertzig, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Please be in attendance at the meeting in Coconut Grove.
I actually do.
And we should have a little more expanded information on everything that's gonna be further investigated with this.
It will be the 17th at City Hall at 5:30.
Everything Mr. Barr said, I agree in terms of how you feel about
Yes.
the law.
Sorry for your
Nothing
loss.
I asked, nothing I said specifically.
Yes.
I just wanted to get to the bottom of it.
Thank you, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My son's 19th birthday.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.